The United States has become the world's top tier. For most American history, the United States prison system has the same rate of incarceration as other Western democracies today. In the 70s, the United States presented similar crime rates as those seen today, but now we have about 5 times higher incarceration rate. Around 2 million people are 7 times today, representing 25% of prisoners worldwide. Moreover, the sad reality is that this percentage does not include about 5 more million people under probation. The prison industry complex has been introduced then by activists and researchers to the possibility that this rise in crime levels is the leading cause of prison population growth. Instead, they argue that prisons construction and the consequent push for filling these new structures with human bodies have been driven by ideologies of racism and the desire to make a profit. Moreover, they affirm that though wisdom laws has held the contemporary design rhetoric, which conceptually separates punishment from the crime. The exploitation of prison labor by private corporations has become a changing symbiotic relationship between the federal government, corporations, and mass media. Bill Clinton took the United States presidency in 1992 with the same politics as the Republicans before him to install a tough on crime government. By the time of his departure, the population in American prisons, which in 1992 numbered 1,429,000, had risen to 2 million, an unprecedented number with the highest incarceration rate among black men and young. This administration will put into introduction a new federal regulations, such as the three-strike law, which imposed a life sentence without parole to those with three convictions. Moreover, it increased penalty for drug-related crimes following the mandatory guidance of the Sentencing Commission. He actively promoted the provisions of true sentence, forcing prisoners to serve at least 85% of conviction before agreeing to parole. Moreover, he started using federal funds for the construction of new jails, the militarization of the police, and the creation of SWAT teams. Furthermore, the increase in number of inmates did not result from a sudden boom in crime. Transformation in planned criminal justice and practice have made it possible. The implementation of the three-strike through the sentencing bill and the telephone crime competition have increased the conviction for minor crimes, raising the number of incarcerations and the length in prison. Also, the number of inmates serving time for non-violent crimes increased since they represented 70% in 1996, with more than 4,000 inmates locked up solely for drug-related offenses. The only justification for this brutal daily repression measurements will be the high incarceration levels to reduce crime rates and stop drug-related crimes. Nevertheless, this assumption is a fallacy. Studies suggest the cross-national comparison of crime rates have proven that this is a correlated relationship. American keeps placing above the highest quarantine in all violent crimes, even though they have about 25% of prisoners worldwide. Furthermore, from the 1980s to the 2018, the number of people incarcerated for drug-related crimes skyrocketed from 50,000 to 400,000. Over 15 years ago, the American researcher and activist Angela Davis issued the term prison industrial complex. She compared it to the more powerful and feared military industrial complex. As she stated, prisons do not disappear products, they disappear human beings, and the practice of disappearing vast numbers of people from poor immigrant and fragile marginalized communities have become big business. The largest prison corporation in the United States, Corporation of America, was the first of this innovative industry. Created in 1983, was owned by Jack Mason, the same founder of the Hospital Corporation of America, the largest private hospital and surgery center company in the United States. The next year, Wacom Corporation was founded, a company that would later be bought by the GEO Group, the second largest company of the industrial complex. The industry would start to emerge in a context dominated by the conservative mindsets of the Ronald Reagan era, and heavy-handed policies created enough demand to convince group of investors that a business opportunity existed. Therefore, the first prisons were built in small poor towns with the promise of guaranteed jobs, increasing revenues, and lowering the cost that a growing prison population inflicted on the government. During the next year, CEA and the GEO Group will extend their reach, and the private prison industry will continue into the decades that follow. Corporations will join the crusade of exploitation with the pass of time, hence that between 1990 and 2009, the inmate population of private prisons increased in 1,600%. The 10 prison industrial complex how have changed how we conceptualize and talk about prisons and police, shaping how we explain the prison existence. since the frequently heard expression of mass incarceration often advocates prisons as solution of crime and other social problems. The temple was born to fight against the penitentiary system intrinsic racist characteristics. The United States has passed a point where the number of benefits can justify imprisonment people. The drastic growth of incarceration in recent decades has not been proven benefits for the prevention of crimes. Federal and state legislatures should reconsider their current criminal justice policies to reduce seclusion and explore other alternatives to the phenomenon. Furthermore, they should take steps to improve incarcerated men's and women's experience and avoid unnecessary harm to their families and communities.